On April 20th, 2010, a 9-year-old drilling unit used by BP, or British Petroleum, exploded due to a leak of high-pressure methane gas. Many of the workers survived by escaping on lifeboats, but despite a 3-day search by the Coast Guard, 11 of the workers were never found. It wasn't until 2 days later, after the fire was extinguished, that the leaking oil was noticed at the site.
The spill lasted for 56 days and let out over 4.9 million barrels of oil throughout the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. The effects of the spill were devastating to the marine wildlife in the Gulf, and the amount of animals killed is uncountable. Aside from the animals affected, many plants were affected by the oil and remain in poor condition. Due to the difficulty of cleaning the oil from the Gulf and severity of damage it caused, there is still oil in certain areas throughout the Gulf. The oil spill was very controversial because, on one side, people wanted the military to step in and help clean up the oil, while others felt that it was abusive to use them as an emergency cleanup team.
Should the military be involved? They're already fighting a war and can't afford to have limited resources. However, the government saw the importance of cleaning the oil spill and sent the Navy in to deal with the mess. In a similar event, the March 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill in Princeton-Williams Sound, Alaska, the U.S. military cleaned up the 11 million gallons of crude oil spewing into the ocean. The Gulf of Mexico oil spill once again put the U.S. military in the role of leading the cleanup. The Naval Sea Systems Command has sent 66,000 feet of inflatable oil boom which contains the oil spill.
There was great debate between whether to send military to help clean up the oil spill. President Obama originally requested funding from Congress to send military help but was turned down. According to National Public Radio's Wade Goodwin, it wasn't until April 29th that the federal government declared the disaster a spill of national significance. Later in NPR's piece on the BP oil spill, they quoted President Obama on his determination to use every single resource at his disposal to fix this disaster.
After the oil spill, President Barack Obama announced that BP will be charged with a fine of between $5.1 and $21.1 billion. Although he announced this fine, it was up to a newly elected council to decide how the money would be spent. They decided that some of the money from the fines will be spent on repairing wetlands damaged over the years by construction of canals to serve coastal oil fields. With the equipment and manpower already in the Gulf repairing damage from the oil spill, it would be cheaper and more efficient to also repair the coastline from other damage it has suffered over the years. However, BP fought back against these fines, so legislation required that at least 80% of the civil and criminal penalties charged to BP under the Clean Water Act be returned to the Gulf Coast for long-term economic and environmental recovery.
Now that the majority of the oil spill is cleaned up, it is not a large concern for the military. The military is no longer a main player in the cleanup, and BP is doing more to remove the oil still present in the Gulf. BP has set aside $20 billion to help the Gulf area economically and environmentally, and they claim to be paying for all legitimate cleanup costs of the oil spill. BP is working hard to clean up their mess, but without the military's help, the Gulf would be in a much worse state.